Hello, I'm Dr. Carmen King Ramirez, and in this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about global citizenship education via collaborative online international learning, also known as COIL. This presentation is going to highlight a grant that was given by CERCLL for a project that I carried out that I'll talk to you a little bit later about. So a quick overview of what the presentation will contain. We'll discuss global citizenship education, collaborative online international learning, and how those two are connected. And then I'll share some information about the CERCLL grant that I was awarded and those project outcomes. So what is global citizenship education? Well, there are several definitions. The one I'm going to use here is from UNESCO. And again, you have a link and you have a reference down in the corner. And UNESCO describes it as a type of education in which the professors are invested in empowering learners to assume active roles in society, both locally and globally. And this is so that our students can build more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, and secure societies. So with everything that's going on in the 21st century, with globalization, internationalization, we can understand that global citizenship education is needed more now than ever. So how is this connected to collaborative online international learning, or COIL? Well, again, living in the 21st century, we understand the importance of our interconnectedness, of having access to and being able to listen to international perspectives that aren't always available in our immediate communities. And the way that we get those is increasingly through digital media. So therefore, we need to develop digital literacy in order to achieve our goal of being a global citizen in the 21st century. So these all really go hand in hand. So you may ask, how are students currently having access to international perspectives? Well, at most institutions, academic institutions, we're all very familiar with study abroad programs. And while these are fabulous, and of course it's preferable for students to go abroad, to have an experience outside of their home country, we know that only 1.6% of students enrolled in academic institutions in the United States are taking advantage of study abroad opportunities. And there's a lot of reasons for this, right? A lot of times it's cost prohibitive, they have families and jobs at home. And then when we look also at demographics and student profiles, we see that over 60 or almost 60% of students studying abroad are Caucasian, followed by a much lower percent African American. So minorities rarely are accessing these opportunities. And then also, if we look at where students are going, what is their destination, many of them are traveling, the top destinations are still in Europe. So how are students, the majority of our students, accessing international perspectives and news? They're using social media platforms, right? About 2/3 of Americans, as we see in this study here, are accessing their news through social media. And the majority of these people are getting it through Facebook and YouTube, as you can see here in the graphic on the right. So I'd like to talk a little bit about YouTube, because the project I'm going to describe to you a bit later uses YouTube quite a bit for the activities. So we know that television consumption, watching television, is down 4%, while people who access YouTube is up 74%. So again, this is a really powerful tool that people are accessing to get information. YouTube is available in 80 different languages and over 90 countries. So we're not just talking about the United States. Really worldwide, people are using YouTube to access information. And if you'd like more data, you can go to the reference below. That's where I got this information from. So since we know that the majority of us are accessing our news on social media, heavy usage of YouTube, Facebook, etc., then we really talk about global citizenship as also a digital citizenship. So what does that mean? Well, Mossberger, and again you have the reference here at the bottom, talks about the S3 framework. And that's using digital spaces in a safe, savvy, and socially responsible way. So taking that into account, how digital citizenship is connected to global citizenship, I want to talk about the online collaboration that was carried out between the University of Arizona students and students in Mexico at the Universidad de Sonora. So as you can see by the map here, the universities are actually in fairly close proximity, less than 5 hours away from each other in car. Do take into account, as you see on the map, that this gray line represents the international border. So although Tucson is only an hour from the Mexico border, a lot of students cannot cross that border for several reasons, so it is prohibitive to be able to go across and have a lot of face-to-face experiences with people who live on the other side. But why is it so important that we do this? Well, I wanted to share some images with you just to illustrate in pictures how our relationship with Mexico, especially in these border cities, has changed in the past 100 years. So here we have a picture in the early 1900s of Nogales. We have Nogales, Arizona on the right and Nogales, Sonora on the left. You'll notice they share the same name. A lot of times people today call them ambos Nogales, both Nogales. And there might have been a fence or some sort of barrier, but as you can see, really you could drive right across without being questioned or having all your things looked through. There's not military presence. So they really does seem like one city. Then we come here, and when in the 1990s under the Clinton administration, we talk about Operation Gatekeeper. And this was a government initiative to start to close off the borders and start to close off immigration. And as you can see here, again, this is about the same area as the picture we saw in black and white. We see the border wall, a really tall border wall coming up over the mountain, or the hill, I should say, that separates ambos Nogales. So on one side of the wall, the side we're looking at is Arizona, and on the other side now we have Mexico. So really much more difficult to cross. Then in 2018, under the Trump administration, we're looking at the same wall, but now we have these barbed wire coils coming across it. So almost looking like a penitentiary or some type of jail system trying to keep delinquents out. So you can see how the look and feel of the border has dramatically changed within the past 100 years. And that, of course, reflects the politics and the relationship between the both countries. So taking this into account, global citizenship and the communication and understanding between these two countries is really more important than ever. So this project, as well as being funded by CERCLL, also was made possible through CONAHEC. And CONAHEC is the Consortium for North American Higher Education Collaboration. And what they do is they help universities to find partner faculty in other countries so that you can carry out a shared project. So this project, we developed it together. My colleague from Universidad de Sonora and I developed a shared curriculum to teach an online course that focused on digital literacy and global citizenship. And this was a fully online course, so we had about the same number of students in Mexico as well as the U.S. sharing this course together for an entire semester. The learning objectives were that students would develop global citizenship skills, critically consume digital media, and then we wanted them to also, with their international partner, create some sort of presentation or media that would reflect a binational perspective. Because what we know is that even though people are consuming most of their news, especially about other countries, through digital media, it doesn't always mean that those sources are valid or that they're sharing correct information. So quickly, these are our student profiles. We had 15 Mexican students participate and 14 U.S. students. The majority were female. And the ages were, again, majority were 18 to 24 years old. And then we had, of course, people in other age groups participate. And also interesting, 83% of our students were Latinx. So a lot of the students that we had participate in the United States were also from a Latinx background. So I found it really interesting that the students who were attracted to this course in the United States, because this was an elective for them, a lot of them were from Latinx backgrounds. So we asked the students, have you ever participated in a binational exchange? And 26 of them, which was 90% of the class, said no. So for many of them, this was their first opportunity to work with someone going to school in another country. However, when we asked them if you ever visited your neighboring country, 93% said yes. So we have students who have been able to have mobility and cross the international border line. And most of them, which I don't share all of that information here, but I will have to say from what the information they gave me, and I've gone through, a lot of them have family on the other side of the border and friends. But as far as an academic experience that goes beyond their home country, again, 90% of them had never done that. So we shared a learning platform. We used Canvas so that we put all of our information in the same learning space. So it really was, they were taking the exact same course. We used WhatsApp so that they could communicate, and Zoom so that they could communicate both by text and also oral and video conferencing, because we thought it was really important that they could see and hear their international partner. So every week they would have to communicate with their partner via a virtual platform. So we used a lot of critical discussion forums in Canvas, and this is just an example of one of our modules. They went through several different modules throughout the 15-week semester. But for example, they would read and view media about Central American migration. So as we were going through this course, there was the migrant caravan coming from Central America, and it was in the news both in Mexico and the U.S. because, of course, they were coming through the borderlands. So we asked students to look at digital media and to see what type of news that each country was producing about this migrant caravan. And we asked them to look in their own country. So students in the U.S. were asked to look for digital media about the migrant caravan in the U.S., and then students in Mexico would consume that digital media in Mexico. What was Mexico saying about the migrant caravan? And they were asked to find similarities and differences about what they found and to post clips or links to this digital media for their partner, and then they would both review it and discuss. So here's just an example of the type of media that was present that our students could access at the time. Again, most of it, of what they're gonna consume, is a lot of it is placing the fault or the blame or the responsibility on the other country, right? So I ask students to reflect on this and talk about what they had concluded. So we have a student in Arizona who says all they want to do is build Trump's wall. These news reports created negativity. The audience still depicts them negatively in a cruel way rather than understanding the issue in a humanitarian way and pushing aside politics. So you'll also, as I read through some of these comments, the students are not only watching the video clip, but as we do in the 21st century, we also read the comments people are making. So what is our community and people in our country saying about this? We have a student in Mexico who posted this clip and says, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto submitted a supportive program, Estás en tu Casa, where they could have a temporal work, children can receive education, among other opportunities of life. So again, really looking at the different ways in which media has talked about the migrant caravan in both countries. So after students compare and contrast how the media in their country is portraying events that affect both of them, both countries, I asked students to choose a topic that was pertinent to both Mexico and the U.S. and to create a presentation that presented both perspectives, not just a nationalistic local perspective of what's going on and how their immediate community is reacting, but how this issue is represented, is dealt with, is discussed in both Mexico and the U.S. So just to conclude, what were the students' experiences and opinions with this entire project? I have a student here who made this comment: the way we learn from each other and the way we view news stories and the way we need to double check our stories to make sure they are true and are based on facts. And this was the response from the prompt, what are the main concepts you learned from this course? Another student responded to the prompt, how has this changed your perspective about your neighboring country? I see the reasons for change now. I'm more interested in communicating with my new friends and learning more about their culture and their perspective. I'm really shocked to learn about a lot of American media as well. I'll never see it the way I used to. So I only had time in this presentation to post a few comments. Of course, I had almost 30 comments from students from both Mexico and the U.S., and I kept hearing this, I'm shocked, I learned a lot, I wasn't aware. And then how has this changed your perspective about your neighboring country? I have two students here whose responses are the following. It has shown me the seriousness of certain problems going on. And then I have a student who says, I seriously think Mexico and the U.S. need to work together for the safety of immigrants. So again, very transformative. Students really not only go away from this project with a new perspective about their neighboring country, but many times a new perspective about their own country and their own community. So I close this presentation putting out there a call for more research, and this research was originally from this call was originally from Ortega 2017, who states, the majority of the world is multilingual, but inequitably so. Much of the world is technologized, but inequitably so. So as professors, it becomes our responsibility to generate research about language learning and digital literacy for language learning that addresses these problems. So I leave you with that quote, as well as a thought from Paulo Freire, la educación no cambia el mundo, cambia a las personas que van a cambiar el mundo. Thank you very much.